My name is Mary Smith. I was born in Fermoy, and because my mother wasn't married, she was put into the Magdeline Laundries. And then I ended up in Clonakilty Industrial School, and never went to school, and then I was put into Mallow, and in case I got pregnant I ended up in the Magdeline Laundries in Sunday as well in Cork. I never knew who my mother was, but I realised later that she was locked up because she was having children outside marriage. Years went by. Unfortunately I didn't come to Dublin on my own, but I was brought up to Dublin against my wishes, and I found life very hard, struggling in life all alone in the world. Seemingly years went by and I discovered I had a brother called Christopher Smith. And I tried looking for him, and I wrote to the priest in Newmarket in '86, and he said, "Your brother is dead, get on with your life." I discovered I had a brother when I was 23, and that was around the time I thought I could find somebody. Unfortunately for me, I found my brother through the Gerry Ryan show in 1989, and we were doing a research on something. A woman came up from RT, and we went down to Cork because people from Newmarket, County Cork, knew Christy as a wee boy, as a little boy. He was put into Cantork, you know, in the courts. There's a form there. They said he was sentenced to the courts in Cantork, and he was sent to Greenmount and then Upton, where Christy never forgot that he was raped by two brothers, and he named them constantly. When I found Christy in a mental home in Our Ladies in the Lee Road in Cork, and this is when I found Christy. The day I found Christy, this is now my brother Christopher Smith. He was then 43 years of age. I was his first visit. The guards locked him up because he was homeless. I have it on writing there, because he was homeless. Sorry for this. It says there, the guards locked my brother up because he was homeless after coming out of Upton Industrial Schools. After all, the church and state took our home from us, so that's a contradiction. Where was I supposed to go? Where was Christy supposed to go when we came out of these industrial schools? Because we had nowhere to live, nowhere to go. We were homeless because of the church and state snatched our home and snatched our mother and snatched everything we should have had as children. And Christy, unfortunately, and I were separated. So I found him in a mental home on the 22nd of the 2nd, 1992. So this is when Christy was being forced. He signed himself out, and that was in his signature there is Christopher Smith, and it says Upton. His address was Upton. So when he signed himself out, the guards locked him up again, and it says there, because he had no fixed aboard, that's why he was locked up, and that's where he remained all his entire life. And it says down here, Christy was admitted to Our Lady's hospital as a temporary by the guards, and left, and sorry, on the 25th of January 1965, and discharged on the 9th of September 65. He was readmitted again with no fixed aboard on the 15th of September, and there he remained. And I found him on the 22nd of the 2nd, 1990, in Our Lady's Mental Hospital, where 3 months later he was transferred to St.Stephens Hospital. Now, when I found my brother, I realised he was never certified. I was his first visit in his life. Even though I was living in Dublin, I went up and down to Cork practically every month to visit him. I would not leave him there. Unfortunate thing about Christy was that he had a very strong brain, and they never cracked him, because he remembered the brothers that raped him. And he said, I used to bring me into an office, and I used to come out, excuse my language, with a sore hole. And to think that that abuse went on. And then I met the psychiatrist, I'll give his name, Eugene Morgan, and I asked Eugene Morgan, could I get him out of there? And he came up with this idea that Christy was sexually active to any woman that passed, yet Christy was in a mixed ward. This was an excuse. There's a letter there from a solicitor, Hannah's solicitor, and it actually, he's telling the solicitor that Christy was put in by a farmer. So he didn't know who Christy put in, because he was telling lies to everybody. I apologise about this. I haven't got these organised. So I did my utmost best to get Christy out of there, and I'm sorry I can't find that the solicitor, anyway, he wrote to Eugene Morgan saying Christy was voluntary. I tried my utmost best. I went to a social worker called Patricia Daly here in Dublin, and I asked for the social worker to get Christy out of there. She done her best, and that was the reply that was got, that Christy wasn't under the ground because he was sexually active. That Morgan made up this lies. Anyway, I went down to visit Christy until 2:07. I'll fast forward. 2:05, Christy was always asking me, get me out of here. He was drugged to the eyeballs. There's photographs of him there. A fine looking man. There he is there. That's him there. And there's another photograph of him here. A fine looking man that he is. And there's another photograph of him. Now in 2000 I went down to visit Christy in St.Stephens Hospital in Glanmire, County Cork. And seemingly when I asked Christy to look at the clock, he says I can see the clock. And when he went to look at the clock and they couldn't see, I went to the people working there and I said my brother is going blind. When that happened, I rang up the opposition myself, and when the opposition said that he had cataracts in both eyes, they weren't going to operate on him, I had to contact Micheál Martin, who was Minister for Health, and Owen Ryan, and through them Christy got cataracts in both eyes advanced. Only that I pursued it, Christy would have went blind. And I was actually told in St.Stephens that there was many more like Christy who had gone blind, because I saw a man lying on the ground who was only about 40 and he'd gone blind. So neglecting this hospital was tremendous. As years went by then, when Christy went in to get his eyes done, they discovered that he was a diabetic. Through that he was a diabetic, which prior to that he wasn't. So went in for the second operation. So again I wanted to get Christy up to Dublin so I could be near him, because it was too much hassle for me to go up and down. And most of all, Christy never was certified, which I have proof. And so when Christy went down to see Christy, he was losing a lot of weight. And this was around 2:05. And when I was asking them why Christy was going to the toilet a lot, and they wouldn't let him into what to call it, a hospital. And I said, why won't you let Christy into a hospital? He's going to the toilet and losing weight. So I went to the medical council to get Eugene Morgan removed from malpractice, because he wouldn't allow my brother into a hospital where he was supposed to go, as everybody would. So he went to the medical council. There's the thing for the medical council. Sorry about this. And when I went to the medical council, there is the one that he's telling them, the solicitor, that the farmer brought him in. That's coming from a solicitor now. Now Morgan is telling a farmer that Christy was brought in by a farmer. Yet when I contacted the medical council to get Eugene Morgan removed, he tells the medical council that my brother was voluntary. There's no indication stating, there's nothing signed, there's nothing that indicates that he was voluntary. Now, down there, I was after, this was taken in the 20th of February 06, and he's telling, actually, the medical council, and it's written down here, that on Monday, that I believe Mary Smith telephoned a GP practice in Cork to take, and there was no reason for a doctor. And Mary Smith on the 19th of February also claimed her brother was not communicating. He rang for an ambulance control. I rang for an ambulance for Christy, and it was refused. Next thing, Christy collapsed on the 21st of the 2nd 06, which indicated what happened was that the medication that he was on, the narcotic drugs that he was on, were counteracting with the drugs that he was on. The medication, that's rubbish, they give narcotic drugs, were counteracted with the diabetes, and that's why he collapsed. So with the medical council, he told them, he walked from the medical council. Even though he told the medical council that my brother collapsed, he walked. I have sent a copy to every politician, including Bertie Ahern, and he sent me this back, yet my brother wasn't even allowed into a general hospital. Then when Christy, my brother, went back to the lockup, which is Stephens's, the concentration camp, where he was no, you wasn't allowed outside the door. I was actually told that Sunday when I went down that I wasn't to see Christy. And you know what I was told? That Christy was now under house arrest. This is where the trouble and hurt started for Christy. I was told my visits be restrained, how often I could see my brother, and my brother was not allowed food. Because I went to the medical council, now my brother was the victim, even though he was never certified and illegally locked up in this mental hospital, St.Stephens. My brother suffered the consequences because I went to the medical council. Therefore, I was only allowed to go down so often. I wasn't allowed to bring food, and also there was in the dormitory, when I used to go down, there was a bed where Christy was in the dormitory, and the window was left opened, and this was in unit 8 floor 3, and the thing was left open, the window was left opened, and Christy's bed was pushed under it so that his chest be bare, so he'd get pneumonia. So I went and confronted him, the staff. I said, why is Christy's bed under the window and the window left open all the time? Oh, the answer I got was, oh, the cleaner keeps forgetting to bring it back. At this stage, I am now going to the papers to save my brother's life, because I knew that he was being neglected and they were trying to give him pneumonia. So I went to the papers, and this is what was on the paper. This. I also went